Welcome back, adventurers, to Let's Play Riven, the sequel to Myst. When last we left off, we had managed to solve a series of puzzles with the boiler on the third island of Riven, and we also caught a frog in this trap here, and turned off the mechanism for the fan. So now we can climb up towards the fan and not get our faces chopped off this time, because the fan is no longer working. Unless some idiot or one of Gehn's guards decides to be a troll and turn on the lever, which he can't now because, well, we're inside. We're inside of the pipe. Rather colourful pipe. I'm getting a strange vibe from this. And this fan appears to be not working as well since we turned it off. And this grill is not open, but we will change that. Although I'm pretty sure that someone's going to notice. Can we actually close? No, I think we kind of maybe might have broken that. We're inside. We appear to be inside the structure at the moment, and it's certainly quite elaborate. But there's a door that we couldn't get into before. So we open the inside, we should be able to, hopefully we can get in that way. And there's another tram button that we shall press, because we didn't see a tram at the platform, which I'm pretty sure is somewhere over there, probably down past those steps down that other way. Let's return to the desk. Have a look at this. You see that pipe? I've seen that pipe. I've seen it before. On the Temple Island, or at least a depiction of it. This is one of Gehn's studies. This is Gehn's pipe. Don't know what he smokes with this. I'm pretty sure it's not tobacco. But the fact that this pipe is here and not with Gehn spells omens, ill omens. There appears to be some sort of crude contraption here. Some sort of bayonet or something, some kind of Rivenese projectile or something. Doesn't appear that we can take it with us, and we probably, as much as I want to take this, it's probably asking to get found, which is never a good thing. But there's an apparatus over there, and a pen and nib, and many motifs of the Riven, and there's an inkwell here. Most importantly is this book that lies before us, emblazoned with the Riven motif, as we've seen many times over. So I'm going to have a closer look at it. It appears to be made out of solid wood, as opposed to a leather cover. There are these three rings that form a spine of some kind, so I'm guessing that Gehn fashioned this himself from one of the trees. So let's have a look at this. Well, his handwriting is definitely different from Atris's. It's more finer and has a kind of flow to it, but As you can see at the top there, it has the same dating system as the journal of as Atris's journal. 82.2.13. The latest ink formulation has proven a failure. Even when writing in my most promising books, I obtain only the barest glimmer of a connection. It is frustrating to expend so much effort creating a blank book, only to end up destroying it when it doesn't work. There are days when the laboratory is uncomfortably warm from the flames of those failed attempts. The further I refine each element, the foundations of the inks and papers, the physical dimensions of the books, the more I realize that the list of potential combinations is nearly infinite. It is during moments like these that I despair. Without access to Dunny, my long-term goals may never be accomplished. Nonetheless, there are avenues of research which remain to be explored. So apparently Gehn's early attempts to create a way out of Riven, to create a link outside of the age, wasn't initially successful. Which is, again, not surprising, because Gehn he wasn't really taught a whole lot about the actual fundamentals of the books themselves, the metaphysics behind how they link to other ages and so on and so forth. But it appears that the properties of the ink and the actual pages themselves have something to do with this. They have a much bigger role in how a book links than... And let's read on. 82.5.8. I am discontinuing regular observations of the stars beneath the fissure. Although I have been able to track the dark cloud-like formations that migrate through the star field and have proven that their paths are cyclical, without proper instrumentation it is pointless to continue. My general theory concerning the nature of the fissure has remained unaltered since it first appeared. It seems that the fabric of this age has been breached in a way that permits matter to be hospitably exchanged between the discrete but overlapping spaces, much like a link. Sorry, between two discrete but overlapping spaces. But for the apparent physical contradiction surrounding this juncture, defy logical reason. The great column of wind that was formed when the fissure first appeared suggests a vacuum, as one might expect in space. Yet my earlier experimentations revealed the presence of a breathable atmosphere. That Atris and Catherine threw themselves into the void is further evidence that it might be safe to travel, but without knowing its true nature I cannot take the risk myself. It is also difficult to say what would happen were I to reopen it after so long, but it is likely that the results would be catastrophic, given the changes that have occurred in the Sage since that time. So we've learned quite a bit more about the star fissure, the anomaly that Atris used to, A, escape Gehn, and B, keep the Myst book out of his clutches, and it seems that Gehn was far too proud of himself to risk what Atris was willing to risk, which was his own life, in order to, But Atris mentioned Atris mentioned the possibility of using the star fissure as a means to signal him. But it says Gehn has also said that he has sealed the fissure while observing it. We've seen an observation apparatus before on the Temple Island, and it appeared to be observing a giant sheet of metal. So we were right next to the star fissure. And of course the end of the entry, basically Gehn is implying that if we were to, basically open it again after 33 years, that the instability to Riven, that the fissure might cause Riven's already unstable foundations to fundamentally collapse at the point of no return. Maintenance on the steam vent caps completed. 83.2.10. I am extremely pleased with the continued success of this system. I believe the construction to have been true to the Dunny's designs of my memory, another example of the superiority of the Dunny technology. It's ironic that Atris and Catherine unwittingly provided me with such a convenient source of power. There appears to be diagrams drawn by Gehn of steam rising up and Gehn harnessing it through levers and pipes and stuff. This could be important. As with many of my views over the years, thoughts regarding the origins of the fissure have changed. I've recently begun to wonder whether it was actually an unexpected byproduct of the changes Catherine and Atris wrote into this age during their escape. Certainly by casting their linking book into the void, they have trapped me here quite effectively. But I do not believe that Atris intended the book to be lost in this matter. Better to destroy it than to risk the possibility of its falling into unknown hands. Also, had they foreseen the creation of the fissure, they would surely have thought that the vacuum it created would eventually consume the atmosphere of this planet, a fate which Catherine would have undoubtedly deemed unacceptable for her home world. If I had not been there to supervise the construction of the seal, this is certainly what would have happened, for the villagers were far too frightened to even approach the vortex without my urging. I hold on to the belief that it was an unintended consequence of their writing, for another reason as well. I prefer to think my son had meant for this age to be merely a prison for me, rather than a death sentence. So this confirms basically that, of the seal on the Temple Island covering the star fissure, and that the fissure itself was somehow the result of Catherine and Atris's attempts to either stabilize Riven or possibly keep Gehn from following them or some such thing. But Gehn is right, Atris is not a cruel person, ironically, unlike his father and sons. Atris is a fair man, and for Gehn to live out the rest of his natural life on Riven was, as opposed to execution. But we've also learned something rather unique. Gehn referred to the age of Riven as Catherine's home world, which means that Catherine is Rivenese, which is quite interesting. Quite interesting development. This also explains, why Catherine would want the people of Riven, her people, to be free, from the fate, the sword of Damocles that now hangs over their head, or the pen of Damocles. What I meant to kind of say there is that, you all know the pen is mightier than the sword, and Atreus' pen is currently starving off that sword of Damocles, but not forever. 83.5.14. The construction of the images has proceeded without fault. It is interesting to see how I've been able to adapt the Dunny technology to mimic that of the armored. In some ways, the similarities between the two cultures are striking. I wonder if perhaps there had been communication or commerce between the two cultures in earlier times. Maybe Keter's people were even descendants of the Dunny. It pleases me to think so. There appears to be diagrams of the images that we saw, one in the Jungle Island in the school, and a giant version on the Temple Island. Note, it's possible that if I were somehow able to supply the books with a power source of sufficient magnitude, I could suppress the variance enough to facilitate a solid link. It is doubtful that the geothermal cap generators could provide such enormous surge. Perhaps I could adapt the fire marbles. I've been cataloguing the natural elements of this age for nearly 30 years now, yet I continue to find evidence of the Dunny's preoccupation with 5. As a boy, it was very clear to me that the number 5 held a special significance in the Dunny society, from the ancient heraldic emblems of the ruling elite to the humble homes of the commoners. It was ubiquitous. I think that's how you pronounce that word. Its presence here is obviously a direct reflection of the minds that designed the text that I used to compose the Sage. Further proof that through their art the Dunny masters were indeed creating the marvelous worlds they wrote, and not as many have mistakenly thought, merely building links to other worlds. While most of my constructions have been based on Dunny designs, I see now that the ones that I've imbued with the power of 5 are clearly the most beautiful, the most perfect, and, I believe, the most structurally sound. We are now getting quite a bit of insight into Gehn's twisted mentality. So, Gehn believes that those that know that the linking books are in fact bridges to already existing worlds is false, and that the Dunny were in fact creator gods, which is a romantic yet fundamentally untrue notion, and quite dangerous. In fact, this thought was considered heretical in the Dunny civilization. The notion that they were creating the worlds that they were linking to was forbidden, was blasphemy in their eyes. And with that in mind, Gehn believes that it is the Dunny's, symbolism of 5 that is, being reflected through his writing. Or it could just be the fact that you yourself are A, writing some of that symbolism into Riven, and B, indoctrinating the other people, the villagers of Riven, with the concept of 5. I am still attempting to determine the Dunny color symbology. I am still attempting to determine how the Dunny's color symbology reflects the superior design principle. Although superficially it is based on a 6-color system, I am convinced that there has to be a deeper connection to 5. I will continue to investigate. And there appears to be there appears to be 6 eyes. They kind of resemble the ones that we saw on the outer shell of the spinning marble domes that we saw. And if you remember, the one that we opened up on the here on the Boiler Island stopped at this point. So this eye at the end appears to be part of the fire dome puzzle of sorts. And Gehn has mentioned that while there are 6 eyes, he's only used 5 of them because he believes that the Dunny concept of 5 is superior to everything else, which shows his grand complex.